What up, y'all? And welcome to Elev8. Tonight, I'm super excited. We got the one and only Hendy. Man, this is going to be great. I also want to let you know that we're looking for some brand ambassadors. We need your help. And we got this beautiful thing called Elev8 Dolls. Elev8dolls.com. Go there, sign up. You don't even have to do a whole lot other than participate and have some fun. Show some love and put smiles on people's faces. And really, let's get ready for the Mr. Hendy himself. All right, y'all, we got our special guest, Hendy Glass, here today. Really excited, and welcome, Hendy, and thanks a lot for being a part of Elev8.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to chat with you guys for a little while.
So the first question, how did you get started blowing glass?
It's a funny story. I was actually working at a saltwater fish store. Like, I managed it. I used to be into like taking care of reef tanks and things like that. And a dude came in, and this was in 2006, and he was all like decked out and seedless, and he's like, "What's up, dude?" And like, so what's going on, man? He's like, "You smoke weed?" I was like, yeah. And he wanted to hook up, so like I gave him a discount on some like corals and fish and shit. And then he also sold weed, so I ended up buying some weed off of him. And then eventually he opened a production studio in like 2006, 2007 with the guy that taught him. Those two guys are Farmer is what he goes by, Jason Friedman, and Matt Bain. Those guys, started a company called No Stress Glass. And then I was like their first apprentice. So he was like, "Hey, you ever thought about blowing glass?" And I was like, "Nope." And he was like, "Well, if you wanted to, we're taking apprenticeships." And so that was kind of it. It was kind of on a whim type of deal. And I think that's kind of how it was back then. I mean, you see such a surge nowadays of people, because it's gotten more mainstream and there's more, popular artists and Instagram profiles and all that stuff. I mean, I think there's people that are like, "I want to be a glass blower," but I think a lot of us that started, you said you're at 16 years. I'm at, I think, like 14 years. Like when you started, it's like you definitely thought it was cool. However, like I don't know, for me, I guess it wasn't like I had set out on this mission to become a glass blower. It kind of just fell out in the lap, and I kind of just did it. And then like here I fucking am, I guess.
So when you were in there apprenticing, what did you make? Did you just make simple spoons, slides?
So I started out like when they were building the studio, for the production studio. I started out pulling cane for like, both of them so that they can make pipes and stuff in their garage. So I did a lot of cane, or we called it Latticino. I know there's a lot of, different terms out there for it, but,
So you were doing inside out pipes mostly, I would assume.
Yeah. I did that. I pulled stringers for them and stuff. And then once we kind of opened the studio, I started making an inside out pipe. Super simple. It was like I think it was like a 3.5-inch point of like 32 millimeter flared fume. And it had two little inside out designs, and it had a bubble mouthpiece, a Maria, and like a bone head, just like your classic kind of, spoon with the Maria shape. And I think it was like a $6 pipe, and I made a shit ton of those, and that's kind of how it was. I just started making simple spoons. And then as their company grew, since I was kind of the first guy there, I would take on the new stuff. So then I started making peanut pipes, and then I started making bubblers, and eventually it grew into like I worked on a lathe for like 2 years making recyclers and,
oh, wow.
and bongs and things of that nature. So yeah, I got a lot of. The good news of it is it kind of hindered, I wouldn't say hindered, but it slowed down like my artist journey, I guess, because I worked a good 7-ish years in production.
So with that said, I find that I work, I've had glass blowers come in and everything. I feel that what you did is probably the right way to do it. I feel like sometimes when you go art, you miss all the fundamentals and the wax on. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I find more often than not that, and I don't like, I guess it's tooting my own horn, but I tend to be, I guess, a little more well-rounded than I'd say your average glass blower, just because I've done all that shit. It's like there's really not, I guess, too many things, like minus like, really fancy techniques or like, artist specific pieces, but like if you were going to go down the classic like smoke shop route, there's really not too many like pieces that I couldn't make
Right.
that are going to sell it. I can, like I said, I can make triple bubblers, quadruple bubblers. I can make, inlines, up lines, fucking recyclers. It's like I made all that shit for 7 years, so when you go to make your own work, it's pretty nice to have like that backbone of, like you're saying, some fundamentals of, not having to worry about other things. Like I don't make recyclers often in my work anymore. However, when I do, I'm not concerned about how they work because I know that I know how to make them, and
You've done that. You failed in the past. You know how to get the water to move. So you're going to.
Right. So I think it's a big thing. It is dying, I guess, these days, because there's so many artists that are going to start and they're going to get right into it. And at first I think I used to be, I guess to be honest, like bitter about it, like if you're a guy that spent,
I'm guilty.
spent 7 years, or whatever plus, and then, like for me, I kind of, I don't want to say had to do it, but the particular situation I was in, as far as just like with my personal life, I needed the steady income. I couldn't afford to just, be like, fuck it, I'm going to go make art and hope I make money doing it. And so I kind of, did it because I needed to. It was a bittersweet and it paid the bills. And I just gradually worked out of it by just working harder,
And you just nailed it right there. I think the working harder, it's, I think that's what glass really is about, is like, you're going to do something and you're going to fail. So you either can go home, cry about it, or just work harder, get through it.
Yeah, it's definitely part of it. I don't like to say I had anger problems, but there's nothing more frustrating than glass sometimes. And it humbles you, I guess, as a person. Like, nowadays I can break, a $2,000 or $3,000 piece and I'm definitely upset about it. But I'm kind of like, fuck it, because there's nothing you can do about it. Like what happened. It happens in a less, like, a fraction of a second. You know what I mean? It's like you're having a good old time and then you're like, fuck me, and like, that's kind of.
Do you find it's your fault if it breaks though? Because people say, oh, it's the glass, it's the color. And I always go back to, well, it was usually me trying to rush through something or.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody the other day about it. I've developed a knack for like kind of part of my style, is I'd say doing things to the glass that like you probably shouldn't until you I guess I call it develop that relationship with it. Cause I do a lot of hard cuts. I do a lot of interesting shaping and blowing out and cutting and moving glass around to where if I was to try to do this, 5 years ago, I'd been like, no fucking way. Like you cannot do, like, it's going to break, like 100% it's going to break. And sometimes I blow glass with like experienced glass blowers or something. They're like, what the fuck? Just because I'm doing like some things that's a little unorthodox. However, because I've developed, I guess, the relationship with it, I can kind of push the glass a little farther than maybe it wants to go. But unfortunately, if I'm not like paying attention 100%, then it usually ends up breaking.
and that's you pushing your skill set slightly, a little more each time. And then you're like, I pushed a little too far.
Usually what I find, like, to get back to your question, is kind of like if I'm not focused, it's like you have that very slight moment of unfocusedness, and then like it's followed by like, God damn it, because it's like there's times where I get like deep in a piece and my sculpture will have, the head is fully sculpted, but now the bodies are fully sculpted and the pants are fully sculpted and there's like feet on it and all this. So it's like there's all these parts that like have to stay hot the whole time. Mm-hmm. And I find that sometimes if I forget my thermal zones a little bit because I get in depth on like sculpting a particular part of the piece, I'm just like focused on that piece, but I just slightly drop focus over here, then I'm going to end up with a problem. And that's usually where I know it happened, like, where I'm just zoned in on the piece and I'm heating this up and then I just go a little too far or I take a little too long here and I'm like, God damn it. Like, it's like I knew it was going to happen and I should have just put it in the kiln, but for whatever reason, because I was out of focus, you know, it just fucking breaks, and you're like, shit.
And I think you know that you do have the skills and you know the glass, so you think like I can control this and I can get it. So you know you mentioned you have all your different parts and pieces and you got to keep it hot. When did you? I noticed you use a lot of Bunsen burners now. When did you first start using Bunsen burners? Was that way back when you were already on the lathe, or?
So I actually don't use a Bunsen at all. I run on a Herbert Arnold, so I run my Herbert Arnold with compressed air.
Okay.
Basically makes a giant Bunsen burner, but it's still on the bench. I tried to switch over to a Bunsen burner like a few years ago because I was like, oh, maybe it'll help me, because I have used them on the lathe and everything like that. But for me personally, I got thrown off with it being on my bench. Just the angle kind of changed a little bit, and I don't know. I like it coming out of my Herbert Arnold, you know, and I feel like I can see it hit the piece and like kind of come off. Whereas when it was coming from the bottom, you know, I'm trying to, you know, move because it's a sculpture, so it's like there's sculptures everywhere. It's not like it's just a sectional, or I'm trying to keep a seal hot or something. I'm trying to keep the whole damn thing hot, and so I found that, you know, using compressed air in conjunction with propane on my Herbert Arnold, I can produce like a really big annealing flame, and I can kind of adjust that flame. It could be a little hotter, it could be a little cooler, you know, and then ultimately I can add in a little bit of oxygen if I need to make it even hotter. Because sometimes with the sculptures that I do, a Bunsen isn't hot enough, and it'll eventually lose heat because there's different thicknesses going on. Some thicknesses, when I do like a little blowout cut, that thing can get down to about 2 or 3 millimeters thick or so. But right above it could be a little bit of an area where there might have been a little bit of an add-on that could be 5 or 7 millimeters thick. So it's like, you know, I have to constantly play that game of keeping the thinner glass hot constantly so it keeps up with the thicker glass. And honestly, that's just a little, I guess, secret of really kind of helping your sculptures survive, is, you know, being mindful of the heat disbursement through your piece, you know, and really paying attention to that will help, you know, survive, you know, some of those pieces, you know, and Bunsen's definitely help. I'm not against them. However, personally, I have better luck using that thing. Now, I did pick up, not to plug them, but it's really cool, but I did pick up a Blast Shield, started making last year. These
I love Blast Shield. I fucking love them.
Yeah, they're great people. And they started making a plate, and it's got a bunch of holes in it. So I do use that on larger pieces. So like it's a graphite plate. It's got a bunch of like 16 millimeter holes drilled in it, and you can put 2 Bunsens or so underneath it, or 1 Bunsen, and it'll like light up through. So I could set a large piece on that plate.
So like your table's hot and it's keeping it warm, so you can let it sit there.
Pretty much. And so I can kind of go in and out. A lot of times what I do is I use it for when I'm making like large pieces and I'm starting to pull off all the bridges and stuff like that. You know, I'll kind of just set it out, let it be hot, so that way I can save some time and not have to go in and out of the kiln and all that stuff. I can kind of just park it on there for a minute. And a lot of times I'll kind of shield my Bunsen a little bit, so it's a little propane heavy. And then, you know, it kind of just gives a nice little flame that kind of, you know, embellishes the piece. And then I can kind of go in and, you know, as long as you have your Bunsen on like a little shut-off valve, you can kill it real quick if you want to too, and get in there and get some stuff, and then, you know, put some heat back to it. You know, similar to if like you're working on a lathe, you know, kind of adapting like a lathe technique to a table.
Right, man.
You know?
And there it is, because you've had all the foundation built into you that you can just pull it out and use it now. And
it really helps. You know, it definitely, I think, you know, we were talking about like, you know, pieces breaking and things like that. There was a point when I just like, I don't want to, so I definitely care. It definitely hurts when something breaks. However, the fear of like things breaking is what I think holds you back like the most. You know, it's like, if you like stop caring, that like, you know, I used to tell myself, if it breaks, I'll fix it. And if I can't fix it, then I'll just replace it. And so like, once you kind of just have that mindset, I think a lot of times what was doing it, especially when I was a younger glassblower, trying to make like bigger and badder things or whatever, I was just so scared I was gonna fucking break it the whole time that, you know, I think that held me back on whatever, maybe not trying something, or ultimately like trying it, and but then you're all like get down on yourself because you're like, fuck, I knew it was gonna break, like why did I do that, you know what I mean? It's like you constantly have these ebb and flows as an artist of beating the shit out of yourself because you're like, oh, it was my fault. I should have just not put that on, or I should have, done this. And once I stopped giving a shit about that and just, I guess, just trying to go for something, and if it breaks, it breaks. I found that is definitely, it can work both ways though, because I mean, sometimes you just break shit and you're like, you just go down a bad road because you just keep breaking stuff, and at that point, you really have to pull yourself out of a fucking hole, and you got to like kind of go a couple steps back and like reset and things like that. But something that was told to me by the guys that taught me like a long time ago is that, eventually your mistakes or like your breaks and everything like that will be fewer and far between. And, once you get to that point, then it's like, there's definitely things that you make that if something breaks, it is kind of like like it must've just been a weird, I mean, Glass has got a crazy fucking mind to where it's like sometimes stuff, like, I mean, it could sit in my shop for a week, 2 weeks, and then I ship it. Next thing I know, there's a little check on like an eyelid or something like that. I'm like, fuck, I swear to God, that wasn't there when I sent it out, and it's like, so it's just, sometimes it just does weird shit. And there's other times where it's like, you've made a piece 100 times and one time it's like, you all of a sudden can't fucking make it. You're just like, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, yeah. And I think that just goes back to the daily frustrations that I'm sure every glass blower has, with glass.
Yeah. I feel that. I know. I feel the same way. I think I heard a long time ago, it's not what you can make, it's what you can save as a glass blower. And because it breaks. And then each time you figure out how to not get it there, and you just keep building and building on it. So, yeah. So you've been, since 2006, you started blowing glass, right?
Yeah. It's been a while.
Do you have any specific items you cherish from like when you first started that you still have? And for instance, your first pipe or something?
Yeah, I'll show you something. That's funny. It's not mine, but I'll show you 2 items actually. It's funny. This will bring back some memories for you because you've been in it this long. So this is this was cool back in the day. I gotta back up a little bit. But so here's a giant double bub with overlaid unobtainium. And like got like a big like galaxy marble on it. It's got a natural for the double bub. Yeah. And the guy that taught me when I was probably like 2 years in. So this piece is like 12 years old or something like that. Maybe even like 13 years. But I paid him to make this, and this thing cost me $125. And it was just so cool. I would not fucking smoke out of it now. Like, I'm sure it would hurt so bad.
It's so big.
Yeah, it's so big. There's so much going on. Like I said, you fill up water here, and it's like, so it does a natural perk. I mean, that was like cool at one point for like a few years or something like that before. It's got snorkel carb on it, which is like, that was the shit back in the day. It's got some reversals. But yeah, Farmer made me this. And what's funny now is when he shut down the company, like after we kind of went our separate ways and things like that, I still managed the shop. Even when I started my art career or whatever, I still try to help out and manage the shop for him as far as getting kids to make pieces and things. But eventually it just became a headache, and he just decided he wanted to shut down. He'd been in glass for 10 years, and he just actually graduated with his accounting degree. He went into accounting. So now he's an accountant, and I'm hoping that he'll help take care of me now. And then this piece was made, which is funny. So this is one of my good friends. He hasn't blown glass. If you are familiar with Trenton O or whatever, this is actually his older brother. And,
wow.
His older brother is one of my best friends. We've been friends since high school. So like going on like, I guess like 18 years now. He made this before he stopped. So he was glass while he went to school, and he's a lawyer now. He's a public defender down south in Tucson. And so this is one of the last like pieces he made. Just another piece that I probably smoke out of. It's a giant Sherlock, like a big like Gandalf motherfucker. Yeah. But it's just really cool. And like you said cherish, like, it's like, these are just things that like, I make really cool shit. And I know a lot of artists make really cool shit, but like the stuff that I have is just like really fucking random. Like, but it's near special.
How many blowers became a lawyer? Like that's crazy.
So yeah, he blew glass see, this is like our little sticker here. This was the company, No Stress Glass. This was a limited edition from No Stress Glass. I actually acquired this from a shop. Like I saw them post it and I was like, I need that. And they're like, what? Like, like, why is Hendy hitting me up wanting this piece? And they didn't, I traded them like probably too much work for it. But it was like, I really, maybe it's probably a fair deal. Either way.
It was worth it to you though.
It was, because it's like, they didn't know, I guess, not what it was, but it's like, yeah, this is a guy that he got out before the big boom kind of really happened or anything like that. And yeah, he just literally did it with me because I started that apprenticeship and he was my friend. And he was, he was like, well, that seems cool. Like, will you guys hire it? And I'm like, yeah, why not? And then ultimately that's how Trent started too, is that Trent, I think his brother had made him some pipes or something like that. And after Trent graduated high school, because Trent's like, I think he's like 2.5, 3 years younger than us. He was like, wanted to get into it. So we got him into the No Stress too. And so he started his apprenticeship there. So yeah, that was interesting. On this one here, my friend just brought this over. I made this thing down the natural road. I made this with my buddy Sen that I just said here, like, I don't know, 13 years ago. And so,
wow.
Look at that.
But it's got everything. It's got a little inside out. It's got a wig wag. It's got.
This was a sock flip Filicello, which was something that was, an interesting technique to do a Filicello back then. Yeah, it's got a little like stringer work, wig wag on there. This full color right here.
Right.
This was the real deal. Yeah. But the funny part is, I made this for a friend, and he just held on to it for a while, and like we smoked the shit out of this thing. And once again, there's no like hole or perk or anything like that. I mean, it's literally just like this was how it was. It was like a little natural. So it's like just blah, 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 just so yeah, these are kind of funny. It's funny you brought it up because he just brought this like to me like 2 weeks ago.
Hell yeah.
Like, look at this thing that I still have, and it's like perfectly clean. It looks like I just made it, and it's just hilarious.
And that's the beauty of glasses. Like if you don't drop it and crack it, 100 years from now, it'll look just as beautiful as the day it was made.
Yeah, I mean that's what I think is pretty neat about it. But yeah, all these pieces, they were except the Sherlock. The Sherlock was never used, but they were all used at one point. That big bubbler. Like I said, I wouldn't smoke out of it now, but I did. I smoked the shit out of that thing, and it's just I wouldn't want to do it now.
Hell yeah. So what classes, if any, have you taken to help further your abilities?
I've never taken a class.
That's both of us. So
yeah. I wish I should have. I was in the production realm, like kind of for a while, and then once I kind of broke off on my own. You definitely can like learn stuff from like working with people. And even then I'm probably not the best at collabing that I should be. I've gotten a lot better recently. But yeah, I don't know, trial and error type of thing. And, it works out. And then I guess you start getting down a specific road to where, there's only a few people that could teach you. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of it just comes down to a certain point. A lot of it's practice, it's like, you can show somebody, like I have a guy that is in here now that is like kind of quote unquote like my assistant, and I brought him in originally to like kind of help me with like doing some coil pots and prep just to like kind of speed up the process. But then I started getting too picky, so I was just like, yeah, like well, fuck it, But I really like him. He used to work with me at the production studio, like in the last year or so that we were open. He was one of our apprentices, and he's a good kid. And then he kind of went off on his own for a little bit, and he was younger, so he just kind of dicked around. And then he decided he wanted to get serious, and so we were like, "Well, come work with us," because in my shop, Steve works here, and then for a little while, Porter was well, I shouldn't say for a little while, for a long time, Porter was working here, but Porter ended up moving up north just recently, so then we had a little open spot here for Friday Glass, is his name, Jake, and that was kind of a long tangent, but basically what I like to do with him, and I kind of did it a little bit with Porter too, is like I show them like the techniques of like, here's how, either I would make that character that you're trying to make or things like that. And I show them the technique and I show them exactly how to do what I guess they want to do. However, they still have to work on it. You know what I mean? They still
Right.
have to, it's like, so there's a lot, it's like, so taking the classes is good because, you can get shown those techniques, but you still are gonna have to put a lot of practice into,
And I feel like you got to come back right after that class and just take what you learned and start slamming it in there. Because every day you slowly lose a little bit. I mean, I
yeah.
feel for me.
What the hardest part with the classes was is that, being a production worker, when I first started out, I kind of like turned more into like a robot. Like I felt like I could be like a 3D printer. Like, like the company I worked for would bring me a piece or, things like that. And they'd be like, can you make it? And I'd be like, yeah, and I was pretty good at replicating, I guess, other shops' designs. And being an artist now, it's like, and we're talking like pipe design. So, I mean, it's a little different, there's definitely like a type of genre of pipes that sell really well in, smoke shops and things like that. So different back in the day when there was whole, like, what do we call them? Distributors, distributors would have certain pipes that were made for them for years or whatever. And then if something didn't work out with whatever shop they were getting them made by, they come to you and they'd lay out 10 or 15 pipes and, they'd be like, can you make these for us? And so, yeah, you're just like, you got really good at being like, yeah. And, what always kind of was concerning me is I didn't want to take a class and then feel that, what I wanted to, I didn't want to like copy the person that I took the class from. And so I wasn't good enough yet, I guess, to really kind of take what I learned and apply it to my own stuff. And that'd be something I could do now. But it's like, yeah, just eventually it just was like, fuck it. I'm not going to take any classes. Like,
and you're so far ahead now, when I look at your page and everything you have, like, you do all the techniques, and like you said, you got a full tool belt. So
yeah, something that I'd say that I wouldn't mind taking a class of maybe now would be like I kind of just recently started fucking around with Millie. I've always been fascinated with it, and I make all like my eye Millie for like my characters and like my dragon eyes for like my dragons and things like that. And I've made some little ones here and there, but I recently have started to like try to make like images and stuff, like flowers and different whatever. I think I made like, a mushroom from Mario and like, I just did a skull like 2 weeks ago or something like that, just really kind of messing around with that. And I really enjoy it. I think I'm going about it kind of the right way, but I guess, I don't know, so maybe and I know some guys like, I've talked to, Grim is, down south from me. Grim's a, really
he's
good.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's like I've definitely, talked to him, and we have a guy that was out here for, I don't know if he just moved to Colorado or not, but Dapo, I think he's still out here. But Dapo is a really good millie maker, guys that have, basically their careers are millie makers. So, I mean, I definitely like, I guess, have an idea of how to do it. But, it'd be nice, I guess, to get taught. I just did a collab with Stephen Bamey, and that guy's work's fucking crazy. I don't know if you've seen his. He's got a complete different style. I'm sitting right next to it, so I'll show you.
Yeah.
The collab that we did was like he's had this guy. He made like this samurai millie.
Oh, and, shit.
Yeah, so it's like he put some sections together where he had like these big crazy samurai, guy on it, and then I made it into like a jamurai and shit like that. And then part of it had like this. There's like a little. He sent me this because I like to make the little Buddhas and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but something like that. That's 20 plus hours to make that. I have to imagine.
Yeah, I mean, and that guy's got a really unique, style. It's almost like he's painting with glass, but then like painting into a millie. There's just some guys that do some crazy shit. Like I've always liked Rocco, like going down the road, like painting with glass. I mean, the pictures that dude draws, he's like, there's some people out there that draw really good, flips and shit like that. But this guy is like fucking painting a picture and it's got shading and like fucking texture. And you're just like, all right, you're taking it to the next level, and that's something I've always been interested in too. Personally, I can't draw. And so it's kind of like, which is funny because I sculpt and that's what I primarily do, but I really can't draw, to be honest. It's kind of funny.
And I think, if you would practice for a year, you'd be great at drawing. You obviously have creative ability. So
Yeah, I think it's one of those things we were kind of talking about earlier, where it's like you just stumble upon it. Like growing up, I played a lot of sports, and like I was just kind of that was like what I like to do. So I wasn't ever really interested in art or like trying to draw or anything like that. I always consider myself constructive, like I like to like build stuff, but I didn't really do it. And then falling into glassblowing and starting the I guess more constructive or craftsman side of it, as far as getting into being like a production worker and things like that. It really started to kind of open some doors in the brain to where I was like, oh well, maybe I can use some of the creativeness that I know I have and use the fundamentals that I know and try to combine those two to make some cool stuff. And that's kind of how it how what I do now it is. Like I was talking to somebody the other day of like, I guess I have a tough time being like, oh, this is art, because I know a lot of times people that make art want to like have this meaning, or they have this whole like portfolio of like why the fuck they're doing what they're doing. And like I'm like the worst guy for that, because they'll be like, oh, you make art. I'm like, I don't know, I just make shit that I think's cool.
right.
Like I don't, I mean, there's things that like if you really get me on the day, like I'll tell you why, I made the invaders, or I'll tell you why I started making skulls and things like that. But at the end of the day, I just liked it. And then, to me, the art aspect of it is like when I make it, if it still puts a smile on my face, or I like enjoy making it, then that's what I'm going to do.
And I think that's the key there is if it puts a smile on your face, it's more than likely going to put a smile on somebody else's face.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say that's probably what keeps me going the most, is just that like I know a lot of people, like I blow glass for myself, or I blow glass for, expressing myself or putting my message out there or whatever. And it's like, I've always felt like, I don't want to say that like I'm doing it just for the people. I mean, it's definitely for myself too, but I do truly enjoy like people liking it, to be honest with you. It's like, I think there's no better feeling as an artist than like creating something that you enjoyed, and you felt that you put everything you got into it, and then like seeing a person who actually bought it. Or like a lot of times that's why I started doing a lot of like shop shows and stuff like that. I mean, obviously this year I've kind of calmed down on it, but I was doing like lots of drops. I was doing like anywhere from like 4 to 5 shows where I'd come out and I'd blow glass and I'd meet people that were buying the pieces and stuff, because honestly, like I love that. I love
right.
seeing people be stoked about it, because it's like
it's that smile, man. Like
it really is, man. Like it's and I know it sounds like kind of lame, but it's like,
it's
I mean,
it's not lame. It
starts to
think about it. Think about it. Like we're humans. We're really kind of simple. We're just community animals. And go back, it's just like, hey, how could I scratch your back? And if it felt good, you get a smile. And I see that, I'm like, good stuff.
Yeah, it's a win-win. I mean, I know it's like an easy career, I guess, if you get good at it, to where it's like, you make something, you feel good about it. You're like, all right, this is cool. Then you get paid for it, which you're like, well, that was cool. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, the person's like happy to receive it. So it's definitely it's nice. I mean, there's lots of, I mean, in the era of the internet and, all that shit, I mean, there's definitely downsides, but you just try to, I mean, I always tell my wife, because there's times where you get whatever haters, or you get people who just want to troll or just want to shit on your birthday cake, because that's what they do. And, that's fine. I think everybody's got a little bit of that in them. But you never want to say it. But there's some people out there just like, man, they just like are like, you're like, damn, dude, like you can't just be saying shit like that to people, but they got no filters. They just do it. And, I think I tell my wife that it's like, you kind of need it. You need to be like, you're not like shot down, but it's like, if everything's so positive all the time, which in the glass,
it's not real.
No, it's not. It's like, even if that guy is being unrealistic, like, he's just trying to, it seems like for me, these people just come out of left field and they're trying to get other people on my feed, because I'll just ignore it. And it doesn't happen often, but it looks like they're trying to get other people, to be like, man, fuck you. It's like, that's how they just thrive off of it. But like, my wife or other people that know me are like, man, fuck that guy. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's like, because sometimes that you need the negativity, like, not that it's like you want to get down on it or anything like that, but it's like, yeah, you don't want to live in this false sense of, always being good, because glassblowing is kind of like that. People are very receptive to, you and pushing forward and everything like that. And I feel like that's something I'm very grateful for, is that since I did kind of do this, whatever, just, kind of, I haven't really like done anything super spectacular other than just like do me. and it's very rewarding.
But I think that is spectacular, because when I see your work, there is nothing out there like it. It is so clean, so on point, and I feel like I'm just pulling on your chain, but it's the truth, man. You nailed it, and everything you do is just, the word is just clean and beautiful. I don't know, you're killing it, man.
Thank you. I mean, I'm gonna beg to differ, but
but that's again why you keep getting better, and you are who you are, because I think you're probably a perfectionist, and so you're always going to find a flaw in your work over and over and over.
It's maddening. I tell people that, like, it can be depressing when you're trying to go for excellence, but yet when your level of pieces, I guess the difficulty goes up. There's just so many little things. So it's like I'm down to where, like, an accidental little air bubble comes up or something like that, and like, if I can't pull it out, or it's in a spot that just doesn't happen, or like just a small little like piece of glass flew off my punny rod and it landed on the glass, but it cooked in really quick, and now I can't get it out, because if I try to pull it out, it's going to leave them. So it's like the tiniest little things that just happen that most people aren't even going to notice, maybe other than a glass blower or somebody who's really in tune with it, but it's like it ruins it. I'm like, God damn it, because like you're just constantly searching for like making that perfect piece, and it's just like
How many of those perfect pieces have you nailed in your lifetime, do you feel?
Never. You've never made a perfect piece, and I know that that's tough for to say, but it's the truth. It's the goddamn truth. Like, at least from me, you could say that maybe I made a perfect piece. Other people can say it, but like, it's never happened. I wish I could say it has. Like, I don't even have one instance that I can be like, oh man, that one was perfect. There's always something. There's 1,000 fucking things on even an invader, a little alien. There's hundreds of little things that I'm like, well, this finger could have been a little better, or like, oh, like this spot here, I mean, there's always just like, or like, oh, like, when I went and made this weld here, just like pushed in just a little too much, I mean, I wish it would have, and it really goes down to how far you're trying to go down that hole. But I think it kind of comes down with just being honest with yourself too, is that like, I don't take it negatively. Like, I don't go away being like, man, I've never made anything perfect before. Cause I feel that when you do, it's like, well, what's the point? You know what I mean? It's like, once you mastered it and you can make something absolutely perfect, then like, what do you do? Like, what do you, and that's what I guess I'm afraid of. Like, not saying I'm not trying to master it, but I think why I enjoy glassblowing and why it's been something I've kept up with for so long is just that it's almost impossible to make it perfect. And that's the beauty of it, is because it's a handmade item. So it can look close to perfect, but like the person who made it knows what happened, and it's never anything like that. It's not like we're talking like structural issues or like it's not going to function. It's just like it's going down into the deepest layer of the glass of just being like, as far as the layers of what maybe I see as perfect and what somebody who's even a collector, even somebody with a really trained eye, I mean, it's like they could praise me all they want about a piece, and all I'm gonna see is maybe that one little fucking part that I particularly didn't like about it, And I've always been super honest of like admitting that. And sometimes I think it's kind of tough because I feel like I get bent over backwards for that. But because I'm very honest with my work and being like, yeah, like it's just that happened, and it's like, because 99% of it will be clean, but like the one little fucking spot that's not, seems like, people are like, well, what's this, Hendy? I'm like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, fucking, sorry. Like, and it's because we're not robots, it's like we can, like, there's some guys out there that can make some beautiful shit, but they're still not a robot, so it's like on a very finite level, there's still, it's not that there's something wrong with it, but there's still maybe on the level of 100% perfection, there's still a slight, I wouldn't even call it an imperfection, just not a mark hit,
Right. And you always know in your head what you want and what you could get to. So if you're just 1% away from it, it's not perfect to you.
Oh, shit. Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I lost the
I can hear you. I can see you.
There we go. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing.
That's all right.
But yeah, I know that was kind of a long tangent there, but
No.
Yep.
Yeah. So where do you do you have a preferred style or technique you like? I know when I go to your site or on your page, I don't see a particular style other than Hendy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's a great question because it is definitely something I like preach to, I guess, whatever younger people or people that are looking for any particular type of information. I don't want to say information, like being like, hey, like what do you do, or like what do you recommend, or what I fully recommend finding your style because, for instance, like I make skulls, I make dragons, I make aliens, like I make these are things that have been made in glass for like years, like since I started before you started, you know what I mean? It's like it's not that these things are mine. The only thing that distinguishes my designs versus others is my style. And once you can develop your style, you can kind of make anything. And there's always going to be, especially the people that follow your work and be like, I'm pretty sure Hendy made that. You know what I mean? And it's like, because it's like, it has characteristics of your style. And I think that that's very important to develop, because then you can look less like some, because the industry is always so quick to point like, you know, whatever, AKM makes skulls. And it's like, he does. And, and if you're another skull maker, like you're usually have chatted with him, he don't care. Like I'm sure if you went after, and I told him when I was a younger kid or whatever, I was like, I'll never put opals in the eyes of my skulls. I never did, and I never will. I've never even done it for a friend or myself for that matter. I've never put an opal in the eye of a skull. Reason being, because that's crossing the line. It's not my style to do that. And not saying that if I did, he would even get mad either way. But it's one of those things where it's like, I think it's just a respect thing. And I think it's important to just develop your style and then realize that once you have your style can help you not really fall in that category of, like, I guess, people accusing you of copying another artist, which is difficult. Because even when I started, like I said, just starting out trying to be a normal guy, like I didn't do a lot of collabs. I wasn't super known. So all of whatever I got has come from just me making pieces and trying to get better and putting my work out there. And what really helped it was just developing a style that people, I guess, could recognize and be interested in. And what it helps me going forward is now when I like look at a picture or something, if I'm all like, oh, uh, a lot of times, like, I've been working on orders a lot this year. And I stopped taking orders like 6 months ago because I'm moving towards a point to where I'm just going to be making pieces and selling them because I want to kind of work on some things. And because a lot of times, like, I enjoy challenging myself by, like, literally I have no plans of stuff to make. And I decide on like my drive to work what I'm going to make that day.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just like really fun because it's just like, it's off the wall shit. And that's where you see kind of like my one-offs is like, I've always thought it'd be hilarious to try to make memes out of glass. And so, yeah, I made the Leonardo DiCaprio meme, and it's like, and you can look at it and you're like, damn, it's just my style. You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't look identical to him and it doesn't look like other things, but it's like, it's him and it's the meme and it's my style. And I think that that's what's important is you can start kind of just taking whatever and making it how you would make it. And I think that that's where it really starts to become fun is like, once you work on your style and you develop it, then you start looking at things differently because it's like, you're like, well, I can make whatever and I can make it in, whatever third person wise, Hendy style, my style. And it brings something unique to it that wasn't there, I guess, before. And that's what I think I've been enjoying the most is just like, picking a particular item and just being, well, I'm going to make it kind of in my style. And I've been kind of adapting that into customs. I still kind of do customs for people.
How long do you think it took you to like, to where your style became you?
So I did the production for like 7 some odd years or so. And then I kind of started branching off on my own. And I kind of started doing that, I'd say, in that transition. Like when I was working on the lathe towards the end of my production career, I'd work like 8 hours shift on the lathe and I'd crush out 10, 15 bongs or something like that. And then I'd go home. I met who's now my wife. Then this was like 8 years ago or so, 6 years ago. She'd make me dinner, and then we didn't have any kids or anything yet, so like she would sit out in the garage with me, and like I would for like 4 hours a night just try to make characters and little things. I mean, and you can see this, like you can scroll all the way back on my Instagram and you can just see, and I've left them up there just because to
Hell
me,
yeah.
it's kind of interesting. You know what I mean? I'm not
It's a
ashamed.
story.
Yeah, so I'm not ashamed of where like I started or whatever. And you can see these weird little fucking characters. Like I just made a minion like last week or something like that again for like my dad's boss. And I used to make a shit ton of them. I used to make and they're terrible. And for the people out there that own them still, I fucking love you guys and I appreciate you because it was just a point in my career where I wasn't as good. And like, and I'm okay with admitting that, you know what I mean? And I got support then and I started kind of like, you know, making like pop culture-y type of things. And that was what kind of got my foot in the door of shops being like, all right, you know, I don't know who this guy is. However, you know, Simpsons sell, fucking Pokemon sells, you know, like, you know, whatever, you know, so that's kind of like, it wasn't that I was like, I guess, super, I mean, you know, all that shit was part of whatever. I'm 34, so it was all part of our childhoods. Like I got wrapped up into a little Pokemon thing with the Charizards for a while, and eventually I had to come clean with myself and everybody else. I was like, yo, I'm not really into Pokemon all that much. I kind of just missed that wave. I was like, you know, I got asked to make a custom Charizard, and then it just got out of hand. And that was like probably the first time that I decided to make something, I guess, like in my style. Cause the guy asked, he's like, can you make a Charizard? And I was like, well, I can make a dragon. I was like, would you care if I like kind of made it like it will look like him and it'll be all the colors and stuff like that, but I'm going to kind of stylize it. So it's not going to be like exactly like the Pokemon or whatever, but I was like, but it'll be in the likelihood. And he liked it. And a lot of other people like it. I think I made like 150 of those or something
Oh,
like
wow.
that. Yeah, you know, so that's kind of I'm a busybody, so it's like a lot of my work, you know, I make these ideas and then they might hit. So I've had a lot of different characters, I guess, over the years where when you're doing orders, there's so many shops out there and stuff. So I take orders from shops and I just do different variations of these pieces. Like right now I'm on number I think 85 of my invaders. I've made 37 Buddhas. I keep a little tab over here on my whiteboard so I can remember which ones I'm at, you know, and like, yeah, I've made 15 Ganeshas and like, you know, I've made 20 Teddies, you know, it's like even the newer things, you know, so it's just like I have like a running tab of
That's
how
cool.
many these pieces I have. Now, the only ones I don't have are the Jammerized. I'd say I got to be in the probably close to like 150 or 200s on those. I've definitely made a lot of those, but eventually what I do is I'll kind of phase the pieces out too. And maybe I'll bring them back later. I don't know, but it's like I make them and then I kind of introduce new stuff. And like people that follow me have been like super receptive to like, you know, it's like even though one piece might gain popularity over another or whatever, it's like people are still willing to support like new stuff. And I think that that's very cool as an artist because it's like they're not hanging on to just oh, like, you know, his Jammerized or this. And there's some people that are very specific on like, this is what I like of yours, and that's fine. But I try to make a bunch of other stuff just to kind of broaden it. And what ended up happening is, you know, it kind of developed like, you know, this long story short or short story, whatever, long, but it developed that style of where I just kind of create different characters in my style and people really enjoyed it. And I think that, you know, that's kind of how it all kept going. You know, it's just like, yeah, you know, it's just I used to work in that garage and I started making little characters and then it just kind of eventually I started making more money in the garage than I was making at my production job and I was working a lot. And so I was just kind of like, well, I got to make the move. And the guy that had brought me on that I'd worked for 7 or 8 years, I was pretty receptive of it. And he was like, kind of like, yeah, I knew this day was coming someday, you know? And we kind of, yeah, we eventually, he shut down the production studio. We opened a little studio kind of together and we rented to like a lot of the guys that worked with us. And a lot of those guys are, you know, still blowing glass to today. You know, like I said, one of them's in my shop now, and another guy is Desi B, who's like a local out here, makes a lot of like recyclers and things like that. You know, Adam was part of our shop for a while, Adam B, and he passed away, and we've had a lot of people in and out over the years, you know, and then I think that's what's kind of cool about it is like, you know, No Stress was a little staple in Arizona for a while. You know, there's definitely some big companies out here, but we were kind of the reason we didn't make it is because we didn't try to suppress the kids working for us. Like, you know, we were like, hey, we're going to be real with you. Like you have to make hand pipes and stuff like that. Like, that's kind of what we do here. but we also offered them free time and things like that. And we tried not to suppress them, but it was really hard to hold on to kids like that. You kind of teach them for a while and then they're like, yeah, I'm going to go make shit for more money. And you're like, I get it. All right. And so that's why it ended up not working out. But,
it's really hard to run a studio because, I feel the art and as a glass blower they're created, whether you had it or didn't have it, once you get into the glass blowing, you become creative, you become arts. And that's kind of like you were in sports and you didn't have the creative, but once you got into it, it owns you.
It really does. And it's really cool because I think it helps you. For me, it helped me, I guess, just be more humble. Like I was more of a jock and, like I said, I was into, a lot of weightlifting and shit like that. I was probably not the nicest guy in the world. And it kind of just humbled me to being like, I still probably have an attitude and things like that, but not nearly like I used to. It kind of helped me be a little bit more in touch with people and myself and just and being like okay with that. Not having to play that being, I guess, comfortable and not having to be like, I'm a fucking macho man. It's like, oh, I'm comfortable with who I am, man. I feel good. Like I don't have to sit there and prove nothing to anybody. And I've made it a point to just try to be regardless. It's like I'm the same dude when I started trying to sell, I guess, heady work like 7 years ago, and where I'm at today, I'm really kind of the same person. I haven't really tried to change too much. And sometimes I think maybe that genuineness, people are like, yeah, right. But I think anytime you meet me or talk to me, it's like, you should be able to figure that out. It's like, I enjoy it. I hope one day that I can like make enough money. I've always wanted to make enough money to go like buy a bunch of stuff off of people that are just like starting in a show. I just personally don't have enough money to do that right now. But, that's what have been like a dream of mine. Cause I remember when I first started, I'd just watch some of these younger artists that, are just starstruck by guys and stuff like that. And I was just thinking, I was like, man, like, how cool it would be to be able to get there one day. And that guy that's like having a show that isn't maybe going his way or whatever, you come up and you buy a piece of his work, not out of pity, but because you're like, yo, I really like it, because
Right.
there's so many glass blowers out there that maybe aren't noticed or like, maybe they're mildly self-destructive. I mean, there's a lot of different, things that kind of happen to us as glass blowers that kind of maybe hinder or aid how well we like, I guess, do, in the industry. But that doesn't like negate the fact that they're very talented. There's people that make some really cool shit that like aren't known or whatever it may be. And I like really like to, support that, if I can, and that's a lot of like what's in my collection is just random weird stuff that I've just kind of bought over
That
the
you
years.
loved.
Yeah, that I liked. I was like, I don't care who made it or what, it's like I've never been one, which is ironic because, people start to buy work based off of names as you go. But I think you'll find a lot of time that the guys that maybe have a name, they're interested in just supporting people with passion, really.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. I think you're right. What is your favorite color to work with?
Ooh, let's see. So like if you look at my work, and I guess you'll notice that like I use a lot of like classic colors. Like, obviously there's the hype colors and everything like that, but I use like a lot of like I'd have to say mint is probably one of my favorite
Really?
colors to work with, and a lot of people don't use it, but I enjoy it. And if you go look through my work, you'll find it a lot because it's the reason I like it is it's bright. It is opaque, which a lot of people don't love these days, so they want to see function and everything, but it is really good for sculptors because of its opacity. It is bright enough to like catch the light, but also dark enough to like when you put cuts in it and things like that, it creates a lot of shadows, and it just really brings, a lot of times what I tell people is like when I work with transparents, it's the sculpture still looks great and everything like that. However, because of the way that the light is coming into it, so it just like hides a lot of work sometimes. It's like there's lots of like cuts and crevices and things that you do to try to bring these sculptures to life that gets hidden because you can't see it.
Yeah, I personally don't like the transparent unless it's just slightly there. I really like the dark colors. It's like life is a lot of dark colors, or not dark, but opaque colors. And
Yeah, I just think the opaque colors just, help a sculptor. Like it helps like show off the sculpting. And so mint's one of those colors where it's still like, light, like, it's not a super dark color. It's not like black or something where like, it's sucking up all that light. I mean, it definitely grabs it, but it's opaque enough, obviously to kind of show some shadowing and stuff. And so I've kind of gravitated to using that a lot. And then I've kind of stopped using, but one that I think that people always thought was interesting is I use a lot of rust. And rust is a color that a lot of people don't use.
Hmm.
But if you use it right, it's a really pretty color. And it's changed a lot over the years. Part of that's why I don't use it as much. But sometimes it comes back. A lot of different colors. The recipes
They
maybe
don't have it figured out yet.
no, it skews and then it kind of comes back because once again, it's another thing that it's made. It's human made. I mean, I'm sure they measure stuff out and everything like that, but there's so many variables in it that I mean, it's very batch specific. And I've also been a fan of OG moss, but I obviously can't use it a lot because it doesn't exist. But that was a color. I have like a tiny bit of it. And I really wish back when I first started, because like I said, I started in 2006, it wasn't like extinct quite yet. It was close, but they were still kind of making it here and there. And I wish I would have bought more of it. But I don't use it as much. But like if I had to like fanboy over a color, I used to always really like OG moss just because of the way it looks. And then another color, and not to like, pump them up or whatever, but like I just, use the Carmeline and or Carmeline. I'm not sure how the hell they're pronouncing it, but either way, those colors that
And
North
who
Star,
makes that? North Star.
yeah, it was part of the Boro Sluggers, like a big fucking chunk of glass. But
Okay.
they got like, I mean, obviously Carmeline, it's got opalescent to it, so it's a gold ruby with like a little bit of opaline in it, or like it's where it's a really fucking sexy color, like it is pink, but
That's
just
one of my favorite colors, pink and
just
purple.
like yeah, it's one of the things where it's like as a glass blower, you start to like appreciate colors for the way that they're made and how they accept or deflect light and everything like that. And this is one of those colors where it's like, damn, it's got like cool, like little like blue, purplish kind of hues on a nice, like kind of fuchsia pink background. It's just a really cool color. I mean, shit, hold on. I got it.
Yeah.
Talking so fucking good about it. I might as well grab it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How we doing there, Drew?
Well,
Good.
how you doing?
Good.
All right. So yeah, I'm in my office here, so I don't know how good the light is, but so this is it right here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's just I guess that looks like the royal jelly of the molten ore, I guess.
Yeah, it's got kind of like that, that milky ness to it, and I think that's what I kind of like about it. Like I just made this little guy the other day, just a little like skull guy here, but just
Yeah, I love that color. When it's thickened up, it's like it's more opaque, and when it's thinned out, it's just cool.
yeah, it's a cool color. So it's like but I'd say like classic tried and true is definitely that, and I don't use it as much as I used to now, but still a good one too is a NSO9, so like North Star's warm yellow, and NSO9 is like that means it's 09, which means it was one of the first 10 colors that they produced. But if you don't use it, you should, because it's basically like the honey-ish color. But it starts out clear and it's got a shit ton of silver in it. So like you learn how to strike it right. It's really pretty. It's just a really nice honey kind of yellow with you can get blues kind of that come out of it, like because it's all fumy. And I've always really liked it. It's a bulletproof color. Like I used it. I think we put it up on the wall or something. I had this like poster from I did one of the champs competitions like I don't know 3 years ago or whatever, and so I got into the masters, and then I made a piece. It was called like the theme was like monochromatic, and it was like what's your favorite color, and so I used NSO9, and so a lot of people chose to use because monochromatic would be shades of, let's say, green, shades of blue, you know what I mean, and you create a whole piece out of one color, but they were using shades of it. Instead, I decided to be like, look at fancy glass blower. So I used one color, but pulled all the different colors out of it by striking it properly.
That's
And
cool.
yeah, I made one big piece. I ended up winning that particular competition, but yeah, I was like, I made a big piece all out of NS 09, and but like it's cool because it goes from amber to yellow, and there's like blues in it and purples and everything. So it's like it's a cool color and it's bulletproof.
Yep.
Sometimes when I'm like trying something just like new or something, or you just don't want to take a risk in it, it's like that color can take a beating. It can really, do a lot of things. Sometimes that's important. Like, pieces like this, like there's so much, like, kind of we're talking about earlier, like there's so many different thicknesses that change, like, as far as this dot, is 5-7 millimeters thick, but right next to it, it's maybe 3 millimeters thick, and so it's like this piece in particular, these are a fuck face, and I love them because they're so satisfying when they're like done. Just the fluidity, I guess would be the word maybe of it, and just like the aggression and just like the textures and stuff. But they're a piece that like has to stay hot the entire time, or like it'll break 100%.
Right.
And I think what's cool about that is like once you kind of start going down that road, you can stop caring about people like copying you. You
they can't copy you.
You make it hard enough. Like some people are like, fuck that. You know what I mean? There's artists that could make that piece, but they're at a level to where, it wouldn't.
They got their own style now. They don't want to copy you.
That's another thing too. If like, it's like, I think, people have always struggled with, the China market, knocking people off. And like, I think that to a certain extent, if you can kind of make it really hard, it's like those knockoffs look so bad that it's just like, nobody fucks with them. You know what I mean? Like, like
I've heard a lot of bad things about China, and as a glass blower myself, at first I was like, fuck China, and I was union, so I was all bred that way too. And, just told about the Chinese blowers and this and that, but it's not China that is knocking anybody off.
It's the
Americans.
Yeah. It's the American companies trying to get the shit made for nothing.
The Chinese just got to eat, man. They're fucking hungry. Yeah. And I've been to China 4 times, and dude, the Chinese glass blowers there, I learned more from them than any blower wanted to teach me here. And
yeah, they're just normal people. And I've always told
normal people.
They're gonna get good too. Like just how us as glass blowers have gotten good or whatever. It's like, it's like there's not like there's anything holding them back other than that the company that's paying them doesn't give a fuck what they do art-wise. They just want that product. But yeah, I think it is a big I guess not a big misconception, but yeah, it's not necessarily, China sitting there trying to knock off all of our pieces. It's more so that it's American companies, or
you nailed it.
And that's like, I think a tough pill to swallow, but like, that's just the way it is. And, unfortunately, like, those champs shows are kind of where a lot of that happens. And I know that they're gonna be like, hey, don't say that, but it's the truth. Mm-hmm. It's like, there's so many import companies there and everything like that, yeah, they're walking around, they're looking at all the different artists that, the pieces, and they're just taking pictures or whatever, and they're just putting it in front of a manufacturing shop and being like, hey, can you make this? And they're like, yeah, sure, we could try. It's like nothing personal. Like they don't fucking know that they're ripping off of this guy or whatever or whatnot. It's like they have no idea really. I mean, they probably have somewhat of an idea, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, they're not sitting there like, it's not vindictive. It's the people, it's the companies that are being vindictive about it. Same thing with like the silicone market and things like that. If we're like now, some of the silicone, they're making like silicones, sculptural pieces. And it's like, it's not China that's, looking for it. It's guys that own fucking companies and distributed companies here that are just like, they don't give a fuck,
And they don't give a fuck. I've had somebody come to me before and he's straight up like, I won't mention the name, but he's like, you come work for me and design some stuff. I was like, I kind of like this. We could maybe work together. He's like, I'll just have somebody come over and steal your shit. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. So, right. Like we can't never get over it.
No, it happens, and it's going to, the only thing that you can do, we can sit here and talk fucking circles around it all day, but the only thing you can do is just try your best to make your work, I don't want to say it's complicated, but, in my instance, I think as complicated as possible and unique, I guess to just to where the guy that's going to buy that piece, and this is a harsh thing to say, he was never going to buy your work to begin with. Like, a guy that's willing to buy my stuff for $2,000, $3,000, like isn't going to go buy $100 knockoff. Like, it's the people that don't know or they just like it. So that's the other thing you got to understand too, is there's plenty of people that follow you, me, and everybody else who likes our shit, but they don't like me. They just like the thing. They're like, damn, I like dragons, and that's a dope ass dragon. So they're not part of like the scene or whatever. So it's like if they see a cool dragon, they're gonna buy it, and I don't fucking knock them for that. I mean, it is what it is, but that's just why, it's like, but that guy wasn't. If he hit me up for my dragon, I told him it was fucking $2,000. He'd be like, no, like, not everybody can afford that, and that's okay. It's okay to not be able to afford, a $2,000 or $3,000 piece. It's not for everybody, and I think we know that. And so, with that being said, there's gonna be a market for cheaper stuff, and people are gonna make stuff to fill that market. It's just how it is. It's never gonna change. It's gonna be the same.
It'll never be a
all the
Hendy
time.
piece.
I mean,
It'll never be that artist piece that was knocked off. And I think,
and it also brings the price. It brings a price justification to it too, because if I was making hundreds a week and everything like that, then it wouldn't necessarily, in my opinion, validate a high price range, because then they're not as in demand
scarce,
or what, I mean?
right.
It's like, I make a lot of pieces, I feel, for an artist. However, I mean, on a good year, I'm still probably only pumping out maybe 200, you know what I mean? Which is a lot of pieces for an individual artist to be making like sculptural work. But in the grand scheme of things, that's only 200. So even if I have just only 1,000 people that want to buy my work, I still have, years of worth of like, work to be made, and that's the whole jam. And I think that's how, I mean, it's the economics behind it. There's only so many people that want to buy so many expensive pieces, and it's just, so it's just, there's so many people that smoke. Like, we just legalized it here in Arizona. That's where I'm from. And so there's millions of people that smoke weed, but there's not millions of people that want to buy a $2,000, $3,000, $10,000 piece. I mean, some will splurge for like 500, 800 or something like that. And that's why I think there's just always levels. And as being a younger artist, I just tried to fill those levels as I kind of came up. At first I didn't charge thousands of dollars. I was like a couple $100. You know what I mean? I was like, shit, I used to trade. A guy out here owns a shop he's a really good friend of mine, and he owns a place called Bud's Glass Joint. I used to like beg him to just trade me for shit. So it's like, I come in with like, $100 bubbler or something, or like, and I was just trying to get my pieces on a shelf and just get it. And I was like, dude, you don't have to buy them. I was like, how about you just, I would leave with like 3 packs of incense, like a fucking seedless shirt, and like fucking, like some papers and some blunt wraps and shit. So I'd just be like trading him shit for my pieces, you know what I mean? And it's like, and then eventually, you start getting a little bit of money for it. And then if you start, but I always tried to, like, I guess for a lack of better terms, like, I guess, know my place and try not to overprice my work then. And I think some people, I don't want to say accuse me, but some people, the most of the time, what my peers tell me is that I sell my shit for too cheap. And it's all in like,
it's what you feel, how long it took. And
I become, and that's what I usually tell them, is that, because I started from a production background, like I'm relatively methodical, and like I know how long things take me, and like, and I don't fortunately make a ton of mistakes like during the process. So it's very fluid. And so I've kind of just developed a method of where I ask a certain amount of money per hour. And so there is sometimes a little bit of a price increase. Like if the material cost was like way higher, I mean, if it's full crushed opal and it's got opals all over it, or it's like, a hype color that costs, 3 times the amount as a normal color, obviously there's an adjustment in price, but there's still a baseline of like, if this piece took me this long, this is how much I sell it for, regardless of what it is, you know what I mean? And so most of the time, if you do, and I mean, this should be generally the fact for anybody, it's like, if you buy something from me that's more expensive, it's because I put more time into it. It's just as easy as that.
Yeah. I feel that. What do you consider to be the most challenging style or piece that you blow?
Well, yeah, like that Sachioko, like I said, is definitely up there. It doesn't seem like it, but
it's the different thicknesses of glass that makes it so challenging.
Yeah, because the piece has to stay hot enough to keep like the thickest part of glass hot. What I mean? Because as it all starts kind of cooling down, if you look at like a marble, I guess is the best way to like explain it is, it's like a marble. It can start to cool down on the surface and it's going to still hold heat in the core. But if you let it cool down too much, that core is a certain temperature. And then if you start applying heat to it again, if you don't sink enough heat into it, now you're going to have a thermal issue because now you have a core that's a certain temperature. You have an outer part that's a certain temperature. And then you have a middle part that's a certain temperature. And, the easiest way to explain that is once those guys start to level, wherever the weakest spot is in that temperature gradient, most likely is going to break. And so that same principle kind of applies to, a sculptural piece, in my opinion. And these are all things that like over the years, at first I used to be like, I don't know, but now I got a lot of time to think about it. And so, and a lot of people have asked me over the years. And so I try to, I guess, put together like a relatively understandable method to the madness. And that's kind of it. That's kind of the sculpting in a nutshell, is just, being aware of the heat, like the thermal barriers, I guess, in your pieces, and realizing that, thicker things, although you may be heating them up, I told them it's kind of like when I tell like some of the guys that I help or whatever it may be, I'm like, it's like kind of if you're looking at a percentage meter, as you go deeper into the piece, like, cause sometimes I'll backfire a piece. I might be out of the kiln for like 40 minutes and some people start stressing out. And really what it is like, you just have to be conscious of your backfiring and when you really sink heat into the piece. Cause like every time you reheat, if you're at 100% of temperature, you might do a reheat and you're going to get to about 80 and then you're going to get to about 70. So eventually, like, you need to do one of two things. You either need to throw it back in the kiln so you can get back up to 100, or you need to spend the time to fully heat your piece back up so you can get up. So a lot of times when issues occur is when you start dipping, and this is just, like I said, an analogy, but once you start dipping into, let's say, the 60 or the 70, now you're going to get into problems with the thicknesses of your pieces. Now, if it's all one thickness, or you've stayed away from particular areas, you can always meet that temperature gradient and you'll be okay. However, if it meets in the wrong spot of your sculpture, it's gonna break most likely. So, you have to do one of two things: put it back in the kiln, or you have to be conscious of, really sinking some heat back into that piece to bring your whatever heat life or whatever the fuck you want to call it back up to 100%, and then kind of work back down and back up to 100%. What I found is like we were talking fucking whatever it's been, an hour ago, sometimes when I lose focus, it's because I'm not 100% paying attention to that. So maybe I let it dip to 50 and I only brought it back up to 70. And then maybe I let it dip to 50 and I brought it back up to 60. I just like was going too fast, or just not paying attention of, or spending the time and trying to push just a little farther, and just kind of fucking up that heat thing. So a lot of my pieces are difficult to make because of that reason. So the fish kind of falls into that one. The Ganeshas do as well, because it's sculptural through the whole thing. Like, even though the Buddhas seem relatively simple, it's the same type of thing, as there's just sculpture from top to bottom. So there's like every point of it has something that kind of either needs to not be hot at all or needs to be hot all the time.
Right.
So it's like, that's just kind of like the balance that you have to play. Is like, sometimes you can work all on the bottom and not really heat the head up, but like on a Ganesh, it's just like it's a little risky because there's so many different like little cuts and big ears that are on a big fucking trunk and shit. So there's a lot of stuff that like is cooling down. So it's like the thinner part of where the cheeks are and things of that nature, that shit could be cold in like a minute. You know what I mean? Whereas like the big trunk and stuff, it's going to lose temperature over time. So it's like, I have to choose. I have to be like, either I cannot let the heat touch this at all, like zero, or I got to keep it hot the whole time. Generally, I go to keeping it hot the whole time, because sometimes the reverse can happen onto you. Is you let the sculpture fully cool down, and you can shock it in the kiln.
Yeah. I've learned that where, you put it in there and just setting it down in there, pop. So, if you're worried too much, it's sometimes just put it in there and hang it out inside where you turn it. Because even the coils, I feel the heat can, if it's out too long, pop.
Sometimes, I mean, I wouldn't fully recommend this, but I've done it before. Sometimes you can shut your kiln off. So your kiln's on. And if you've been out, because I mean, I've had like a full, foot tall sculpture with everything on it. And, I've been like, fuck, I've been out for a while. I feel okay. Like, I can literally touch part of the sculpture with my because it's cooled down, and I've kept a good temperature gradient where I feel okay about it. But however, I'm super fucking nervous to put it back in the kiln because of I use like an F240, and it's got, those coils get hot, and I run hot since I'm a sculptor, so I run around 1100 degrees, and so sometimes putting it in there when you have this hot part and you have this cold part, when it gets back in the kiln, this starts to heat up, and it's like you're just playing a little bit of a gamble game, that hoping that the difference in heat temperatures right here isn't too quick. And so a lot of sometimes what I'll do to take it off, shut the kiln off, so it's at 1100. I kill the coils and I put it in there like you're talking about, so then it gets a little bit of heat,
but not too much. Like,
right, it kind of gets a little bit of a warming, effect, I guess, if you want to look at it like that, and then kick your kiln back on and get your coils in. And because a lot of times,
makes sense.
You're playing with like a couple hundred degrees. It really doesn't seem like that, but when you really try to, I guess, like boil it down, I mean, you're talking about, there's obviously those thermal zones of like 950 or whatever it is, 900, 850, 800, 700. So I mean, it's like it's in those zones. If it jumps too quickly, that's where you're in trouble. If you go from 0 to 1,000, it's just like then so it's like I don't do it all the time, but there's been times where like I've done that when I was kind of worried about the barrage of the elements themselves.
And man, that's great. That's great advice. What's the most amount of time you've spent on a piece?
I think there's been a few pieces that have kind of eclipsed like the 40-hour-ish mark. You know what I mean?
It's a long time.
It is. And and that's been a solo too. So we're talking like a 40-hour solo piece. I've made a lot of like my bigger pieces usually aren't collabs. What's funny is I was actually talking to ScoMo, like Scott Monette, and we were working on some customs together and things of that nature, and we were just talking about it. It's like, it's like being a sculptor and like doing kind of the risky sculpting that I do. It's super nerve-wracking to use like a guy's really nice sectional work on a sculpture. They're like, hey man, like I have a pretty good success rate. However, it's because I'm like not worried about breaking my own shit. But it's like when you throw somebody else's like nice sections into it, you're like, shit, like I don't want to break this, man. Like, and it makes it a lot more nerve-wracking all of a sudden. And so a lot of the bigger pieces that I've made have just been pure solos. But yeah, like 40-ish hours or so. I definitely want to get into making more complicated pieces. That's kind of what I'm going to try to shoot for, I guess, this year, is just trying to make more, because I really like details. So it's like I feel like I really want to take time and like fully detail like an entire piece. You know what I mean? And I've never done it, and I've always been curious of like what would I come up with? I really don't know, but like, just literally every part of it just being like fully decked out,
Wow. Well, I can't wait for that piece to come.
I'll probably never sell it, but I'm going to try for it. We'll see. I might not find a buyer for it, but
and do you consume yourself cannabis? Okay.
Yep. Not as much as I used to, but for a while I was dabbing like crazy and all that stuff. Probably when I shouldn't have been. Like when it first kind of came out, like it's definitely seems a lot better for you now. But I kind of moved over to flower, just a couple of years ago, and I feel kind of like an old man now. But yeah, and then I don't smoke as much as I did anyways. And it's a story for a different day. But like I had a problem with Xanax for a couple years, like 6 or 7 years ago, and when I came off of that shit, it kind of like fucked my brain up like a little bit. I mean, I was still with it, and fortunately, I got a nice strong mind. However, it created some anxiety issues that I never really had dealt with before in my life, and unfortunately for me, the byproduct was that I was like I would occasionally, when I'd smoke and get too high, I'd like freak out. And so like, it just kind of fucked me, and I'm kind of bummed about it, but I just was like, oh, well, it is what it is, so I can't really dab anymore. Cause like, it's like a fucking playing Russian roulette that like 50% of the time I'll probably be fine and enjoy it. Other 50% of the time I'm like, oh fuck, like this is not good,
Right.
And So I just stopped, a lot of times because I would do it. It's like I'd go to a show or I'd go out to Vegas or something. And I you're like, yeah, fuck it, man. I'm like on vacation. I'm going to take a dab. And the next thing you know, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, like I need to fucking calm down. And so, over the years, I've worked towards, being less stressed out. It was more of like a random like health anxiety that I never had before. It was like I'd get super high and I'd be like, why is my heart beating so fast? Or like, why am I, and I'd start just like getting all weird about it. And I'm very open and about it because I feel like a lot of people kind of experience the thing. I felt like the more I kind of,
I think you're right. I know a lot of people that have that same anxiety from cannabis.
Yeah.
Becca, our store manager, same thing.
Yeah, I never had it before. I don't know if it's just part of, I guess, business. Fortunately for me, being better, and maybe I'm like busier and have to be more on top of my shit than I ever was before. Having kids and making sure, like, I guess I'm like good about that. I mean, but me and my wife both. My wife cut back when we had our son. He's like 3 now, and so like I, in return, I kind of did. And I guess what I found is that like I guess I enjoy it mostly at night, like when business is done for the day and I'm not worried about making a piece or breaking it or something like that, or DMing and emails and blah, blah, blah. It's like I can go home and I can smoke and enjoy it and not really, do it. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer because like, yeah, I can't like dab with people and stuff anymore. And I tell them, I mean, if you've talked to some people that know me and things like that, they're like, oh yeah, he won't. He's like, he'll just tell you he'll get weird, and I think just being open and honest about it, is the most, it's just the way you kind of do it. I hope that nobody,
absolutely,
takes it that like, it's never personal. I'm not like, no, I don't want to smoke with you. It's just more of, I'm like, I can't, man. I wish I could. Cause like, I mean, dabs and the live rosin and shit that's out these days smells delicious. Like, I mean,
right.
I feel like I'm close to doing it like every time. Like, like my brother works for me now. He kind of helps with doing all my shipping and I've recently been trying to, have a little website and things like that. So he kind of handles a lot of that stuff for me because it just takes so much time to do shipping and handling and stuff. And so, but he loves the dab and things like that. And yeah, some of the live rosin and shit that he has, I'm like, God damn, that smells so good. And it's tempting. It really is. But I'm like, no, it's a gamble, man. You never know what's going to happen with me.
Hell yeah. Well, that's nice to know. I guess this is kind of the last question. Do you still find the same love and passion as when you started it? From what I'm talking to you, it sounds like absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's that classic, like, at the end of the day. I mean, I think there's definitely times, there could be weeks. I mean, there could be months. I mean, personally, I'd say this year, and I don't think it's necessarily because of COVID, but like kind of like when we first started, I mean, everybody kind of knows I'm from Arizona and currently, and like as last week, like we're fucking crazy out here, man. Like everybody doesn't give a shit. And like, our numbers were like crazy up, like, and like, we were the fucking newscast after news was like saying we're the worst place in the world, like not fucking America, like the world, and we're like, shit. And it's because people are like hella selfish out here. I mean, it's just Arizona is like, a very random state of people. It's like, we're like, I like to think there's a lot of good people here, but there's a lot of people who are like, yo, I don't really fucking care about you. I care about myself. And I think that kind of leads a lot of the problems here. So regardless of that, I was trying to be for our shop and everything like that. We kind of did split shifts when it first started because we're like, we don't know if it's going to get like shut down or whatever's going to happen. So we kind of work in split shifts. And what that kind of helped me do is I am a workaholic and I stay pretty busy and I need to spend more time with my family. I thought that I had my shit together. Like I thought I was really good at balancing it. And I felt that I was there as being a father and a husband and everything like that. But it did kind of shine some light on that, I'm not taking enough time for myself and enough time for my family and everything like that. So this year has been kind of strange for me. And I've kind of struggled, I guess, figuring out what I want to do. And yeah, that's where I kind of just decided that I was going to, kind of stop taking some orders.
You're going to do you now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's going to, because I didn't necessarily lose the passion. I think that it's just every time you kind of get into different parts in your career, you have to kind of step back and reassess like what you're doing. I needed to do it, and the support from everybody was there. And I'm very happy that, you know, the last couple of years when I've been hammering it through and like doing all these orders and building whatever Hendy and my like myself through my work and just the brand or whatever you want to call it. You know, it did awesome. You know, it helped me pay for my wedding. It helped me pay for my child to get born. It helped us buy our first home. Like, you know, all the support that people showed me and the hard work and everything like gave us what we were looking for. You know, me and my wife, when we got together, we like had like a little 5-6 year plan, and we were able to check off all those things on our boxes, you know, and having that from glass blowing is, you know, it, to not sound, you know, douchey or whatever, or non-genuine, it really is like a blessing or whatever. Like, you know, you build it yourself. You know, I wouldn't be saying that I just was given to me. I definitely worked hard for it. However, it still comes down to people wanting to buy pieces, whether that's, you know, and I have a mad love for lots of shops because most of my career was built off of shops. At the end of the day, people do have to buy it from shops, but that's what makes the world go around. And I'm very fortunate that everybody wanted to do that. And so now I struggle with, you know, still wanting to get everything to everybody and everything like that, but realizing that, you know, life changes, and now I have a lot of other things to worry about. I started some little side businesses this year as far as like the Hendy merch, as far as like, you know, like with selling hats, shirts, and different types of products on my website. I started a banger business, you know, where I'm selling the Hendy bangers, and you know, and that's all in hopes to help. I haven't really gone out. I don't really know how to do it on Instagram or whatever, but it's like a lot of it is I probably looks at like I'm just trying to, I guess, you know, capitalize off of the brand, which is, you know, partially, yeah.
That's, you earned it. Hell yeah, capitalize.
The secondly is to create avenues of revenue that would support me not having to be behind the torch 24/7 and kind of give me an opportunity to breathe, and also help out other people. Like I said, now because I have the Hendy merch and things of that nature, I can employ my brother. So I pulled him out of a shit job, you know what I mean, to where he was just, he's got 2 kids himself, you know, my niece and nephew, he's got twins. And, you know, they make him work every weekend. They make him work, you know, late nights and stuff. So it's like he couldn't be home with his family and enjoy being a dad, you know? So I was like, fuck that, dude. I was like, I might not be able to pay you like what you're worth right now, but if you stick with me, like we'll build it. But giving him the opportunity to come in and work reasonable hours so he can go home and spend time with his family and not have to work weekends, and can watch his kid go play soccer and watch his daughter go to dance and things of that nature. It's super important. And then also the bangers are made by a guy in town who's my good friend, who's like an engineer. And he tried to make his own banger business like 3 or 4 years ago, and it just didn't work out. And then it kind of, you know, I wanted to offer bangers to people with, you know, my logos on it and whatever, sell them with my pieces, or design bangers that went well with my pieces, mostly just for fitment. Not that I really push it like that, but like the joints that I use to make my joints on my pieces are the same ones that my bangers are made out of. So it's like, ultimately my banger should fit my piece the best. But that's what I wanted to do. But I also wanted to give an avenue for my homie to make some money too. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I'm really trying to build, I guess, the Hendy name, but with the family. And I think that that's what's really important, is kind of trying to help other people that are close to me, help myself. And it's just a total win-win, I guess. And so that's kind of what I've been focusing on. And with doing that, it's been very frustrating this year, just trying to do glass blowing, trying to do these other things and all that shit. However, it is rewarding and it brings the passion. And so long story, once again, that's how I am. But it's still rewarding. I still enjoy it. And like I was kind of saying earlier, a lot of it is I do it because like people are, and I do it for myself, but I genuinely love how stoked people are about whatever, like an Invader or a fucking Sachioko or whatever, a Jamra, whatever they're buying from me, when they're super stoked about it. Like I make these little ones that I'm going to drop some on the website, but like, just like I make these little things I call dab buddies. And like, these are little like specific ones that, you know, but this is like, you know, obviously a little thing, but so I make these little fucking, they're just little guys. And some people are like, well, what do they do? And I'm like, they don't do anything. They just make you happy.
It's a piece of art.
Yeah. I was like, I call them little dab buddies. So I'm like, yeah, you just like set them out. And like, if you're dabbing and you're all dabbing by yourself, bro, like now you got a little friend, you know? And it's like,
I love it.
Because that's literally how it is. I just like to that little piece of glass to the people that enjoy, I guess, what I do, whatever, it puts a smile on their face and like they like it. They don't care that it's not a pendant or like that you can't smoke out of it or whatever it is. And that is a true, I guess, like supporter at the end of the day, you know, because like they're buying it because it makes them happy. And if I can make stuff that makes me happy, that makes them happy, like
Boom.
yeah, the passion is there, man, and it'll continue to be there. And you know, I think that's the most important thing.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So yeah, I just want to let people know that they can follow you on Instagram at Hendy Glass. Do you have any, and what's your website?
So it's it's hendyglass.com. However, you know, like I told you, I'm not very technically advanced. So my brother he's got a IT degree, so he's kind of helping me build back that website. So right now, it's just my Shopify, but it's linked to my Instagram, and it's
Okay.
all. If you go to the website, it should direct you to the Shopify. But yeah, that's where the little online shop is. The link for that's like my Shopify /Hendy or something. But just if you click on the link in my bio and Instagram or whatever, it's there. And then, you know, we're trying to build it or whatever. But the SiO2 is the banger brand. You know, it is a Hendy banger. However, I did want to try to like separate it, so we call it SiO2, which is like the chemical compound for quartz.
Right.
And it, you know, it's _ AZ, since we're from AZ. You can follow that page too, but it's still pretty new. But you'll see that a lot of the content kind of coincides with my content, but it's different. You know, like we kind of photograph the bangers with some of my pieces and things like that. So we're trying. We got to kind of work on that as well.
All right. Well, Hendy, thank you so much for your time today, man. Like, dude, you went deep, and I appreciate that so much. I hope you know, all your fans come watch this and fall further in love with you that haven't got to know you more personally.
I appreciate it. I don't take the time to really show my face or talk to people. I mean, I do on the DMs, but you won't really see my face too much on my Instagram. You know, I don't put a ton of content in. I like to save it for things like this. You know what I mean? It's like if people want to listen to me fucking babble for an hour or so, then, you know, why not?
Well, it was a pure pleasure to get to sit here and hear you babble, and I loved it. And one day I hope to get to actually work with you someday. And
yeah, man,
who knows?
It'd be fun. It was a pleasure to meet you. And like I said, I thank you guys for having me.
All right. Well, great talking to you, Hendy, and have a kick-ass day, brother.
You too, man. Take care.
Man, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did hanging out with Hendy. That was cool. And I just really want to say thanks a lot for giving us some time, Hendy giving us time. And I also want to let you guys know, again, we're looking for some help. We're looking for some Elev8 dolls, some brand ambassadors. You don't have to be just a woman. You can be a man as well. And I also want to let you know about our Elev8 Veterans. It's a really cool 501c3 nonprofit we have where we get to elevate some veterans, help them reacclimate and rehabilitate into society with some glass blowing classes, or we get them a vaporizer because, you know, help them consume if they're already consuming a little bit. So we got that, and we got a lot of really cool things. And I want to say, if you like what's going on, please subscribe. If you got any questions, if you want to know something, feel free to ask. That's what we're here for. We're here to really, so we can grow. I'm a little selfish on that. But by you asking us questions, if I don't know it, I got to find it. And that's what I need. And we also got this thing, Elev8 University, that is absolutely free if you're interested in this industry. So thanks a lot for watching. Elev8, mind, body, spirit.